Welcome back, everyone, to Tales by the Fire. This week we have another story installment. We will continue The Champion's Quiet and explore Chapter 10. Please sit back and relax. If you enjoy the tale, please hit the like and the subscribe buttons. Feel free to ring the bell to inform you of new content, and express your thoughts by leaving a comment below. As always, your presence is welcome and appreciated. The Champion's Quiet. Chapter 10. The forest seemed to fold in on itself the deeper they went, each step pressing against Thurston like wading through invisible sludge. The air was thick and damp, the kind of humidity that clung to your lungs and made it feel like breathing was a chore. The oppressive quiet only made matters worse. No sounds of life, no whispers of wind, only the faint crunch of their footsteps on the needle-laden floor. It was the type of quiet that made your thoughts louder, and Thurston couldn't silence his thoughts if he tried. One traitor, one executioner, Thurston heard in his mind. The words hung between them like phantoms, unspoken yet suffocatingly present. Thurston clenched his jaw, trying not to glance back at the elf and the fae following behind. He still wasn't sure whether he should be angrier at Dulin for selling out his own people, or at Hovner for, well, hunting people. Every so often, the pull inside his chest would tug at him like a compass, faint but insistent, leading him steadily forward, toward Valera, towards answers. Hopefully. You know what this feels like? Thurston broke the silence abruptly, his voice cutting through the heavy air and startling the other two. He turned slightly, addressing neither of them directly. Feels like the car ride home after you've been called into the principal's office. Good old-fashioned suspension. No one talks, but everyone sure as hell knows what's coming when you step through the door. He wasn't expecting an answer, but Dulin, bless his eternally snarky soul, threw him a lifeline.
I don't know what this principal is. Some sort of Earth monarch, I assume. But I do know suspension sounds unpleasant, which tracks nicely, considering how screwed we currently are.
It's not a literal monarch, Thurston muttered. Never mind. My point is, Valera isn't going to roll out a welcome back banner when we show up with your baggage in tow. He jabbed a thumb over his shoulder at both of them. I mean, one of you's a sellout, and the other, well, between us, Hovner's resume doesn't exactly scream trustworthy ally. Hovner, who had been wearing his usual smirk despite everything, suddenly went cold. His emerald eyes, sharp as broken glass, pinned Thurston to the spot. My loyalties are not in question here. Easy, Legolas. I'm just pointing out the obvious. You've got a lot of unpacked baggage you're carrying, and it's not exactly going to win us any popularity contests.
Boys! Boys!
Dulin interjected, throwing up his arms.
You can flex your tragically flawed morals later. Right now, we've got bigger problems. Like not getting murdered before we even reach Valera.
He wasn't wrong. The path had narrowed disturbingly, forcing them into single file. The trees themselves seemed alive, their twisted limbs clawing inward, ready to snatch at whatever dared too close. Worse, the air seemed colder in a way that pressed against the skin, but left no goosebumps. Thurston hated it. Hang on! Hovner came to an abrupt stop, raising his hand. His casual demeanor dropped like a mask. The sharp, alert predator beneath it stepped forward. The silence broke with a sickening, wet crunch to their left. The noise cut the air like a serrated blade and set the hairs at the nape of Thurston's neck on end. All three froze, ears straining to catch any hint of movement. Another shuffle followed, and then another, like dry leaves skittering across a stone floor. "Tell me that's just a squirrel," Thurston whispered. Hovner's sword sang as it slid from its sheath. The sound was answer enough. What came from the shadows was foul enough to make Thurston's stomach churn. The thing that emerged had once been a man, or at least it looked vaguely man-shaped. Skin stretched tight over brittle bones, its face a grotesque mask of emptiness. It moved jerkily, lurching like a child's marionette with its strings tangled. The stench hit moments later, sharp and cloying, like decay wrapped in damp rot. "Zombie?" Thurston asked shakily, gripping his staff like his life depended on it. "No," Hovner's voice was firm but tense. "What's a zombie?" "Never mind. Somebody has enchanted the dead." And it wasn't alone. More figures staggered out of the gloom, shambling into the faint light. Each one was more battered and broken than the last. Warriors, villagers, travelers, all twisted beneath layers of living death. Their eyes glowed faintly, a sickly green that pulsed in time with the unnatural energy animating them. "Fantastic," Thurston muttered. "We've stumbled into a fantasy world version of The Walking Dead." "Focus!" Hovner barked before lunging forward. His blade met the first creature's neck, slicing clean through. Whatever magic kept it upright snapped, and the thing collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. But the others didn't falter. If anything, they moved faster, as if the destruction of one had spurred the rest into a frenzy. One of the creatures lunged at Dulin, its claw-like hands swiping through the air with unnatural speed. The Fae barely dodged, his small frame twisting as he hurled a glowing vial at its feet. The vial shattered, releasing a burst of blue fire that consumed the creature in an instant. "Any thoughts on strategy?" Thurston shouted, his voice tight as he swung his staff in a wide arc. "Do we have to stab them in the head?" "No. Kill them like you kill anything. I guess you can stab them in the head. Just survive," Hovner bit out, felling another foe with a brutal slash. "And keep moving forward." The battle was chaos. The creatures came at them in waves, their movements erratic but relentless. Thurston's arms ached as he swung his staff again and again. Each strike took out several of the animated dead, but with their numbers it was clear the trio could not keep this up. Dulin darted between the creatures with an agility that seemed almost impossible. His hands a blur as he tossed vials of various colors. One of the creatures managed to grab his arm, its bony fingers digging into his flesh. It pulled Dulin in close, but the little Fey man twisted free with a scream. Dulin grimaced in pain, but his adrenaline and fear kept him moving. The creature let out a guttural hiss at its loss. Hovner was a whirlwind of steel, his sword cutting through the undead with brutal efficiency. But even he couldn't keep up with their numbers. For every one he cut down, Two more seemed to take its place. His breathing grew labored, his movements slower, but his emerald eyes burned with determination. "Thurston!" Hovner shouted, his voice cutting through the din. "We can't hold them off forever." "I know," Thurston yelled back, his voice hoarse. "We have to move," Thurston shouted, his voice raw. "We can't stay here." Hovner nodded, his jaw clenched. "Dulin, we need cover for our retreat."
On it!
Dulin replied, his voice tight with strain. He hurled another vial, this one releasing a thick, acrid smoke that filled the air and obscured their movements. The creatures hesitated, their glowing eyes flickering as they tried to locate their prey. Thurston didn't wait to see if it worked. He turned and ran, the pull in his chest guiding him like a compass. Hovner and Dulin were right behind him, their footsteps pounding against the forest floor. The smoke bought them a few precious seconds, but the sound of shuffling footsteps and guttural hisses told him the creatures were still on their trail. "Keep moving," Hovner barked, his voice sharp. "Don't look back." Thurston didn't need to be told twice. The pull in his chest grew stronger with each step, urging him forward, away from the horrors behind them. But even as they ran, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, that whatever lay ahead would make the animated dead seem like a minor inconvenience. They broke into a clearing, bursting through the suffocating forest like drowning men reaching for the surface. The light of the moon hit them like a blessing, stark and clear, as the corrupted figures halted at the tree line. Moaning but unable or unwilling to follow. "That," Hovner panted, "was entirely unpleasant." "Understatement of the century," Thurston said, doubling forward to catch his breath. His shirt clung to him like a second skin, cold with sweat.
Look!
Dulin's voice trembled, but it wasn't with fear. Thurston straightened and turned, his breath catching. There she was, Valera. Even standing in the middle of a field, her presence dominated everything. Moonlight danced along her blonde hair as her vivid eyes pinned him where he stood. Behind her, torches flickered in the night, haloed by smoke. A cluster of tents sprawled across a shallow rise, banners of woven silver and emerald cloth snapping faintly in the moonlit breeze. Shapes moved between the fires, fae and other beings, some winged, some armored, others cloaked in shadows. A guarded camp, alive with hushed conversation and sharp-eyed sentries. She held her chin high, regal yet worn, her fixed gaze unreadable. A tall four-armed warrior loomed at her side, hand resting on the pommel of a spear tipped with crystal. Eyes locked on the intruders.
"Thurston, what are you doing here?"
she said, something fragile breaking through her calm, controlled tone. "Looking for you," Thurston replied, taking an unsteady step closer. He hesitated, suddenly unsure of himself. For a moment the world narrowed. She was here, alive, unbroken, still commanding the center of every space she entered. Thurston's chest tightened, 1,000 words and years caught in his throat. But what froze him was her expression as her gaze found him, utter shock, as though seeing a ghost step out of the flames.
"Thurston?"
Her voice cracked on the name. disbelief softening into something raw, joy, relief, confusion all at once. He took a faltering step forward, staff still clutched in one hand. The camp stirred uneasily. Some Fae whispered, some raised weapons. Valera's guard moved to block Thurston, but she lifted a hand to halt him, her eyes never leaving Thurston's. Then her gaze slid past him, and whatever fragile warmth had touched her face vanished. It locked onto Dulin. "You!" she spat, the word sharp as broken glass. Her bodyguard's spear angled down immediately, trained on the Fae.
How dare you set foot here?
Dulin froze, color draining.
Your Majesty, Valera,
Betrayer!
She cut him off, her voice shaking with rage.
You sold your people out. You sold me out.
The tension rippled outward. Fae warriors stood, short bows lifted, murmurs rising. Hovner shifted at Thurston's shoulder, his jaw tight, his hand brushing his sword. Some of the Fae eyes found him, lingering with suspicion. An elf among them, in the wrong company. "Hold on, everyone. These two are with me," Thurston pleaded. His voice carried across the camp, but it did little to ease the string of bowstrings creaking tighter. A dozen torches flared as warriors stepped forward, their faces hard and their eyes narrowed. The camp bristled like a hedgehog, ready to strike. Only Valera's hand, still held high, kept the Fae from loosing their arrows. Then Dulin stumbled. At first, Thurston thought the Fae had simply lost his footing, but the wet thud of him hitting the earth told another story. Dulin curled in on himself, clutching his abdomen, a strangled cry escaping through clenched teeth. Dark blood seeped between his fingers, spreading across his once bright coat. "Dulin?" Thurston dropped to one knee, rolling him gently onto his back. When Thurston pulled his hand back, his fingers came away sticky with blood. Dulin's abdomen bore a ragged gouge, deeper than a blade cut. The flesh angry and swollen. The gouge across his stomach was deep, ragged, and began to stink of rot. "He's hurt," Thurston yelled, "and it's bad." Hovner looked over and the expression on his face changed.
The dead have poisoned him.
Gasps rippled through the gathered Fae. Then came the voices. Sharp and venomous. "Traitor bleeds. Let him die. He should have been left for the worms." Arrows dipped lower, not at Thurston this time, but squarely at Dulin. The wounded Fae writhed, his lips forming words that came out as a broken whisper.
Not like this. Not as a traitor.
Dulin's voice trailed off. Thurston raised his voice over the rising fury. "He's hurt. He fought with us, bled with us. You may hate him, but if you let him die here, then you're no better than the old king." A rumble of dissent answered him. The bowstrings didn't slacken. Valera's bodyguard stepped forward, his towering frame blotting out the firelight. Two sets of arms rippled with muscle. One pair folded across his chest, the other resting on the hilt of the crystal-tipped spear. His skin glowed faintly bronze beneath the torchlight, his features chiseled and flawless, more like a sculpted statue than a living creature. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, carrying over the crowd.
Why should this traitor be spared, my queen? He sold our kind to the king. The earth itself would drink his blood with gladness.
The camp roared their agreement. Thurston stood, planting himself between Dulin and the looming guard. Because he's still breathing. Because he can still make things right. He may be a traitor to you, but out there, he kept me alive. You don't have to forgive him, but I won't stand by and watch you execute him under your banners. The guard's 4 hands tightened, 2 fists curling, 2 twitching against his weapon. But his eyes flicked to Valera, waiting. She was silent for a long moment, studying Thurston as though she were seeing him for the first time. Her face softened briefly, then hardened again, torn between memory and duty. Finally, she lifted her chin.
Bring him to the healers. If he dies, he dies. But you have my word they will do their best. Perhaps I can hang him when he has recovered.
The camp erupted, shouts of protest, curses hurled like stones. But Valera's hand cut through the noise like a blade.
Enough!
2 Fae rushed forward, seizing Dulin by the arms and hauling him toward a tent at the far side of the camp. His coat dragged in the dirt, leaving a smear of blood that caught the moonlight. Careful with him, Thurston demanded. The tension didn't fade, it shifted. Eyes turned now to Hovner. He stood tall, shoulders squared, but Thurston saw the way his hand lingered near the pommel of his sword, the way his jaw worked against silent words. He's an elf, someone hissed. They walked with the king. He doesn't belong here. The whispers swelled into accusations. An elder spat into the dirt. The guard's second set of hands clenched now as he stepped forward again.
Why have you brought him here, stranger? Why do you walk in the company of those who enslaved us?
Thurston felt the pull in his chest flare hot, demanding he stand his ground. Because I don't care where he came from. He's fought beside me. He's kept me alive when I would have fallen. I trust him, he has earned it. Hovner's eyes flicked to him, surprised, maybe even grateful, but his face remained stone. The murmur of anger didn't stop, but it faltered. Enough for Valera to step in. She raised her voice, smooth and cutting as a drawn blade.
He stays, for now. His fate will be decided later, by me.
The guard hesitated, his 4 arms flexing as if itching to tear Hovner in two. But he bowed low.
As you command, my queen.
The air thickened, torches hissed as a sudden draft coiled through the camp. The hairs on Thurston's neck stood on end. He wasn't the only one. The sentries turned toward the trees, short bows raised again. From the darkness came a new sound, not the dragging moan of the enchanted dead, but something sharper, crueler. A horn, low and braying, echoing between the trunks. Valera's eyes widened.
No, not them. Not now.
Who? Thurston demanded, gripping his staff. Then he saw. The mist thickened, curling like smoke drawn from a dying fire. Then the shapes came, tall, robed figures that seemed stitched out of shadow itself. Their movements were wrong, deliberate, yet oddly disjointed, as though time lagged around them. The first Bane Walker emerged fully into the torchlight, its hood hanging heavy, concealing everything but the faint glow of two burning eyes. Not the warmth of fire, but a hungry red that cut through the dark like knives. Those eyes fixed on the camp, unblinking, merciless. Its skin, what little could be seen beneath the ragged cloth, was ashen, stretched taut over inhumanly long limbs, ending in claw-like fingers. The air around it bent strangely, the torchlight warping, as though the world itself recoiled from its presence. A second figure followed, then a third, each one taller than the last. Their arrival silenced even the night itself. No wind, no insects, not even the crackle of flame dared break the stillness. The torches sputtered, as though suffocating, their light shrinking back. Valera's guard shifted forward, forearms flexing, his crystal spear pulsing faintly with defensive light. Around them, whispers spread in hushed panic. Everyone knew the stories: walkers of the Bane, hunters of sins, collectors of debts unpaid. They did not come by chance. But the old king was dead. What could they possibly want? One walker tilted its head, the gesture eerily slow, and the air grew colder still. Then it spoke, a harsh rasping sound that assaulted the senses and echoed directly inside their chests.
We smell the blood of oath breakers and the stench of the king's huntsman.
The words rippled through the camp like a blade drawn across taut skin. A wave of panic moved through the camp. Some Fae reached for their weapons, others for their children. Valera's guard unsheathed the massive blade from his back, with two of his four hands, his crystal spear held with the other two. A sound like thunder rolled through the clearing. The lead walker raised a clawed gauntlet, pointing directly at the camp. The voice that followed was deep and guttural, like rock grinding on rock. It directed its words straight at Thurston.
We meet again, wielder of the foreign magic staff.
The torches flickered and nearly extinguished. The ground trembled. Valera stared, looking from the pointing walker, and then at Thurston.
You have been up to an awful lot since we had coffee and ordered an Uber,
she said. Thurston smiled, planted his feet in his fighting stance, and shrugged his shoulders sheepishly.